The state of Neovim in 2023. My name is Justin Keys. I'm lead maintainer of Neovim since pretty much the start of the project in 2014. This talk is about what happened this year since the last talk, which was 12 months ago. So we'll talk about the current status of the project, notable things that happened, and maybe talk a bit about like the positioning of and like why is it relevant to be working a lot and deeply on a text editor in the year 2023. And then we'll also talk about maybe things that happen in the future, assuming I get through all the slides, because as usual I have way too many slides. But first, some bad news, which is we lost Bram Molinar 2 months ago. And this is a loss for the software industry in general, for engineering, and also personally. I took it more harshly than I was expecting, just because a personal character flaw of mine is that when the world loses like a highly competent person or human, I just feel judgmental about the universe's choices, I guess. Bram was a paragon of competence, and for me, he was one of my personal heroes. I've for better or worse, he's been like, he's been living rent free in my mind since 2014, if not earlier, since 2012 actually. I was a close observer of the Vim Dev mailing list, so I know him through his interactions and thoughts that he shared just on the mailing list, but also through the code that he has written. So the bulk of what the world knows about Bram Molinar is encoded in the hundreds of thousands of lines of code that is in the Vim code base. And so anyone who works on that code base for 10 years gets to know at least some part of Bram very closely, and also people who follow the Vim Dev mailing list. And so my impressions of him were just that he was extremely interested in results above most other things, and in particular results for the users. He would often invoke user value as sort of the final decision maker when it came to decide weighing cost and benefits. The other thing that I really admired about him was his ability to focus and before moving on to a new feature or a new topic, he was pretty consistent about driving the current topic to something that was fully formed. And something that surprised me though was in the last, after, especially after Neovim emerged, I saw that Bram was very adaptive, and so even kind of holy edicts that were written in the documentation or the design principles of Vim would be discarded if the data and if reality presented new information to Bram. He would just unceremoniously discard anything that was in the way of user value. And one kind of description of this mode of thinking is Posywid. The purpose of a system is what it does. Like its intentions don't matter nearly as much as the final result. And we try to also apply these principles in Neovim as well. So that's the bad news, and that tempers the rest of this talk, which is mostly about good news. And there is a lot of good news, though, in the bubble of the Neovim universe. So starting out this year with statistics, GitHub downloads continue to be number go up. Well, it's not really clear like exactly how meaningful those are, but Homebrew is interesting. They also kind of changed the way they counted things, but like this is the first time where the Neovim installs are almost like the same as Vim. In previous years, they were more like, I think maybe 50% of the Vim installs. So something is happening where Neovim is just like, it has sort of reached escape velocity and critical mass, and it's now it's becoming like extremely popular. Stack Overflow for the third year in a row, compared to all other text editors, we were voted most loved. And on Reddit, the growth relative to the Vim subreddit is growing very fast, and we're now in top 2% of rankings across all subreddits, compared to last year where we were top 5%. But that just basically is decided by the number of subscribers you have. Yeah, we gained another 200 new contributors according to our commit logs, and 200 out of those, that total of 1100 is from Vim, roughly. But compared to last year, we gained 200 new Vim contributors. And then here's an interesting kind of like relative measure of activity on Reddit, which again just shows you like it's a signal of like people that are thinking about Vim styled text editors, like they're posting a lot on the Neovim subreddit. And these numbers are kind of weird, but I kept this slide in here just because in the middle you can see there are at least 4 of our I think contributors that we gained this calendar year: Gutner, Echanevsky, Wuke, and Maria are some very skilled and appreciated contributors that we gained this year. So like just the rate of contributors that I'm seeing that are high quality that we're gaining is incomparable compared to previous years. Like I remember in the first 2 years of Neovim, I used to worry that we were going to lose some of our best contributors just because it's hard to keep everybody happy. But luckily we gained some others instead, many more. So these are just some rough stats. We gained 100,000 new lines of code. Probably most of that is just like generated files, but this is just I guess worth mentioning that we are generating lots of stuff now. We probably could cut that in half, but the point is that we have now what are kind of like TypeScript type definitions files where all of our Lua modules now have type annotations, which is so that means that like it's available programmatically and it's available to the user through a user interface where you can find the docs for any of our standard library features, and you can also get type hints from Lua LSP server. And we merged about 2,500 commits since the 0.9 release in April. So, that tracks to about like at least 3,000 commits per year, which has been our cadence since 2014. We have 30,000 commits total in the repo, and somehow we're still just only merging 3,000 per year, which is kind of interesting. I haven't really fully thought that through, but it's interesting that all these other numbers are going up, but our merged PRs is roughly the same per year. Not that I necessarily want like more. We don't necessarily, more commits is not necessarily a good thing. Yeah, and then here's just a glimpse at what Coverity thinks about our code quality. We're definitely fixing a lot of things, but the absolute number is kind of staying the same, which indicates that like we're gaining a lot of new code, and we're at least not also linearly increasing the number of potential bugs, but we're also not burning down that absolute number. And then finally, the status of the plugin ecosystem. Here's some indicators of that. There's this new plugin index or plugin discovery website called .file, which I'm very happy with what's going on there. Plugin discovery, I think, is still probably a glaring weakness for Vim and Neovim. Then in terms of like what I've called the T-Pope effect, where there's just like a kind of a maestro of production in the plugin ecosystem. We have at least two of those in the Neovim ecosystem, which is great. Like we need more Tim Popes. The project in general, we don't actually have a corporate headquarters, but it is becoming more corporate in a way. Like, we have some people that like are working on it full time, and also I think just thinking about people as interfaces is a more prominent topic for me. Like if you want to maximize any project, like then you have to figure out how to scale the number of people involved in it, and so that means that the human interactions and like kind of like maximizing the happiness of the people that are involved in the project becomes more of a thing that like occupies your attention, and that's just like that's the way to do it, because like humans are actually the AGIs that are available to us like currently, and even if we did have like digital AGIs, you would still need to like describe the problems and like do all these other kind of like soft things like documentation that we do for humans, which are AGIs. You would still need to do those for the digital AGIs. And then funding, just a note about funding. Where do the donations go? The same place that they've gone every single year since 2014, which is they all go to just funding developers. There's zero overhead. And then just a probably incomplete list of some things that were funded this year by people who are funded. They worked on these things in the right column: UI capabilities, RPC performance, like some low-level details that Bjorn was working on for RPC optimization, like reducing allocations for RPC work, and then also inline virtual text, which is called ghost text in some text editors, and also work on the Xmarks subsystem, which is basically a way of adding metadata to pieces of text, which is a very interesting thing to do to a text editor where the internal data structures don't necessarily make that easy to do, but like that's becoming a very important part of the core. The ability for like all kinds of annotations to be attached to like a piece of text, and then that piece of text can atomically move around, and the attached meaning follows it around as edits are made. And then the options subsystem is also extremely important work that FAMU has been working on. And the reason that that's important is because the options subsystem, the options are the editor interface for controlling how the editor works. And if we don't make this better, then we get all kinds of different like ad hoc, like half-baked alternatives to that, because right now the options subsystem is not as extensible as it could be, or as we need it to be. And so for things like LSP or diagnostics or any other kind of like feature where we want to we want to offer the ability to like change how it works, we need more and more elaborate ways of giving users the ability to do that. And if we don't make the options subsystem better, then that will happen in like half-baked ways. And finally, just mentioning about like what the current risks that I can see. There's still not enough conceptual integrity. This is something that we didn't, I think, make as much progress this year as I wanted to on. And this is important because like thinking about like getting humans to work together and also to like make sure that they're happy to work on a project. If you have jargon forking, if you have just like too much vocabulary, too many like primitive thought elements in the words of Fred Brooks, then it becomes harder to like to build a mental model of the system. It becomes harder to gain new contributors, like tribal knowledge increases, and unhappiness increases. So conceptual integrity, I think, is like it's my chief concern. And still also we're I think very, very beholden and grateful to Zir for continuing to do lots of work, not only on Vim patches, but like some very tricky bugs. And we although I would say like since this talk 12 months ago, we definitely have gained at least a couple people who are doing low-level work on tricky bugs. So the risk is not quite as acute as it was a year ago. Windows support hasn't improved as much as I had hoped this year. And the last one was a risk that was called out last year, but I think it's mostly mitigated now. We have a fairly, like, I would say, comfortable path to avoid kind of like a doomsday scenario where the Vim runtime files are no longer useful to us. The importance of that will of the Vim runtime files, I think, is pretty quickly withering away for the most part, especially the syntax stuff. Tree Sitter is, I think, proven itself viable. It's gaining traction. It's still being maintained, and the WebAssembly support for Tree Sitter just landed, which was a major milestone for that project. Status of Lua. It's now the #2 fastest growing language on GitHub. Last year it was #4. And this is probably because, like, it might be because of Neovim, but I hope it's not. In the same way that, like, Netflix wants to be a small fish in a big ocean of, like, cloud providers, we want to be a small fish in a big ocean of Lua applications and demand for Lua. Like, we don't want to be, like, the only project that's using Lua. So I think it probably, I'm hoping, but I can't say for sure that it's driven by other, like, meaningful applications of Lua, such as, it's used in the BSD kernel, I think, and edge computing from Cloudflare, and it's an extremely strong foundation to build things upon. So let's talk about some highlights from what we did this year. We're trying. We are stubbornly, like, insisting that, like, that Vim as a tool can be and can really, it can get as comfortable as any other sort of, like, developer productivity tool. And so these are some examples of driving towards that. The pop-up menu in particular is interesting for mouse right click, because it opens the door for context sensitive discovery that you just don't really have through any other mechanism in Vim. Your cursor, like, context sensitive discovery, doesn't really exist in Vim. You need a mouse for that. You need to be able to point at something and then right click on it, and then, like, have some logic that says, oh, well, this has, like, these tokens, or the status bar has this message on it because of these reasons, things like that. And let's move on. So virtual text, I mentioned that earlier. This is the, in this screenshot, you can see, like, the size parameter. That is not part of the text. That is virtual text, because inlay hints were enabled here. This it gives us an answer now to a wide variety of use cases, but these inlay hints are the first use case. Being able to sort of, like, show text that really isn't there in, like, different flexible ways opens up a lot of new applications. So Gregory Anders, especially in the last few months, has done some fantastic work for the TUI, which is what we call the Neovim terminal UI. It's the UI that's built into Neovim itself. It comes with a client to itself, and the client works in any terminal emulator. You can have also GUI clients, graphical clients that show a graphical UI for Neovim, but Neovim itself includes only the TUI. And now the support that we have in the terminal is bringing us closer and converging us closer to those graphical UIs. OSC 52 support closes the loop on the clipboard story. So we've long had the ability to just paste your text using Command V or Control V. That just works. You don't need nonsense like paste toggle or anything like that. You just paste into Neovim and it will do the right thing. But we didn't have that for the other side of the loop, which is copying text. And with OSC52 support, that's available in almost any terminal emulator. And that means that even over an SSH connection, when you copy to the Neovim clipboard, it will send that to your OS clipboard. Another thing is the term GUI colors is enabled by default, which means now you have true color support by default in Neovim, and this kind of changes the nature of like the common normal experience that new users will encounter, and it just changes like it changes the face of the project. It changes like what you'll see in like any random article. They'll be showing now a true color version of Neovim instead of the old thing. And we also gained reflow support in oh, that's not for the TUI though. Whoops. Term response though is also interesting because it means that now we have like really good programmatic support for like anything that user configs or plugins want to do with their terminal. They can ask queries to the terminal and they can get responses. And now there's like built-in support for that in Neovim. So related to the default true color option, so we now ship a Neovim themed color scheme, and like I was saying, that this changes like it changes the image of the project. Like this is the image of the project now, and so this is like a color scheme that is characteristic of the project, and that's quite different than just like shipping, I don't know, Monakai or Atom Dark or whatever other, as someone on Reddit called it, unicorn puke, whatever other unicorn puke you get from the typical like thing that you get from like something that's from, I don't know, a megacorp. This is different, and it's stubbornly different. It's intentionally two colors. It's intentionally minimal, because like constraints drive useful and interesting directions. If the directions aren't interesting, then just use something else. But if we kind of do things that everyone else is doing, then it lowers the usefulness of the project. It lowers the reason for existing. So another thing we shipped was semantic token support. This overlays our default syntax highlighting, and it means now that like just with this one single command that you see below the screenshot there, I can now get all my global variables highlighted in a different way, which is something that I had yearned for since I first started working on Vim. And like our built-in tree sitter support, it means now that enables us to render Markdown like as Markdown in our hovers, and this is a really nice contribution by Maria. Snippets is something that was not on my bingo card this year, but we also have now a built-in snippet module, and this is separate from our LSP module. We use the same format as defined by the LSP protocol, but it's not. It doesn't depend on any parts of our LSP module. And so this, similar to the LSP module, is the framework that we're giving to plugins so that you can just build stuff on top of it. But it kind of is an answer to one of those going concerns that has been like hashed out, in various forms for many years in the plugin ecosystem, and now it has been lifted into the standard library. The decoupled TUI is something that I kind of touched on earlier. This landed shortly after I gave this talk last year, and it's very exciting because it makes Neovim what I call a self-hosted UI in the same way that a self-hosted compiler is a compiler that compiles that can produce a new form of itself. A self-hosted UI is a program that can spawn itself and connect to the other instance of itself. And this just again, it kind of just closes the loop like on concepts. When concepts are like one way, it's not elegant, and it adds like entropy for no reason to like the mental model of people that are using the system. So here's kind of like just the most obvious like example of what this looks like. The top window is the server, and then the bottom two are Neovim instances connected to the top window. They all show the same UI. And there's technical reasons for like driving towards these kinds of elegant things, because they allow you to gain like you get technical gains from just by kind of taking a leap of faith and pursuing elegance. You will get actual technical benefits from that. And so one obvious technical benefit from this is that we can remove all of our thread synchronization code. There's a whole class of bugs that we no longer have to deal with. Okay. So we have just there's a ton of features that we shipped, and a lot of them have to do with like bringing you closer and closer to like the internals, and the interface should be close to each other. They shouldn't be far away, because in the same way that like it's, I think, kind of magical that when you write your first config, you have also actually accidentally written your first plugin. You want that same sort of like almost like zero friction reachability to other like plugin development scenarios of the system. And so developing queries, tree sitter queries, is like a basic part of the editor. And so to make it zero friction, we now have inspect tree, edit query, and you can just run those commands as they're shown here in any tree sitter highlighted file, and you can see the results. So here you can see is an example of edit query. The top window opened after I ran the command, and when I put the cursor on tokens in the query, it highlights the corresponding token in the buffer below it. Inspect tree shows the abstract syntax tree of a that was parsed from tree sitter, and this is extremely useful for developing tree sitter grammars. So here's some things that we added in our standard library. Ring buffer is just a common data structure. It's useful for like anywhere that you encounter something that acts like a stream. We also took the first step towards minimizing, if not completely eliminating, the presence of netrw. Previously, the gx command was dependent on netrw for no good reason, and now we have actually just a first-class provider interface called ui.open, and that's used by gx. And so that's one entanglement that we have severed that was connecting us to netrw. Vim.loader is the same optimized loader that was pioneered in Lazy Vim by Folke. And then Vim.version is the first step towards potentially it's just a semantic version parser that allows you to compare versions. But the interesting thing about that is that it's the first step towards potentially in the future maybe exploring the idea of some sort of minimal plugin manager that like can analyze dependencies, and in order to do that, you need to be able to compare versions. And at the bottom here, you see something that I personally love, which is you can run Lua files easily just with the -l argument, and it even works with standard input. And you can treat those that f.lua script is just like running any Lua script with the Lua CLI. You can pass arguments to it and use the arguments in your script. So that again is another example of where we're just kind of closing the loop on the full life cycle of like development stories or whatever in this system. It's not just a text editor. It's like a personal development environment, which is a term that I've seen. And this is a screenshot of the annotations I mentioned earlier. We ship now with type definitions for all of our standard library functions, and so you can see in the screenshot that the hover window shows the result of that. Vim.iter is a complete answer to working with anything that's iterable, lists or streams, generators, and that's one of those things that we had to come up with an answer ourselves because Lua is minimal and there wasn't really any sort of like obvious canonical existing answer in the Lua ecosystem. So it took a while, but Gregory Anders did an amazing job designing this, and now we have it. And this will be the interface for anything that has, like I said, any lists or anything that's iterable, passing those to and from plugins or any part of the standard library. So I don't know how much I probably should end this pretty soon. How much time do I have? Yeah, but I'll just talk a bit about like the project itself. Okay. So last year I talked about this analogy of mining an asteroid, and that's referring to like the engineering work of finding something amazing, an amazing treasure, which was the Vim code base, and then just building on it and developing it and making great things from it. And then, but now, like I'm thinking that we're no longer just like an asteroid mining operation. It's more turning into now like maybe like a space colony or something like that. It's verdant. It's alive. It's an organism, and so that's like the new challenge to see how far we can go with that. Like I personally have zero interest in and probably won't be involved if we go the way that Russ did with like having a corp, like some sort of like committee or whatever that's like having trials and hearings and I don't know, whatever committees do they have a gavel or something like that in these committee meetings? Maybe we don't have that. Although I do think like in real life meetups are something that some of us want to do, maybe at FOSDEM. But the point is like the human component is there. We want to keep our developers happy. We want to like maximize that as much as we possibly can by driving towards conceptual integrity and other things like removing paper cuts, removing the painful like accidental parts of developing the project. We want to do as much of that as we can so that like as many like brilliant people keep being attracted to the project. That magic comes from that basically. And so I mentioned earlier, like, you know, yes, it's a text editor, but no, it's not just a text editor. I mean, it's a computer. It's like a personal computing environment. We need that because the OS vendors failed to deliver that. Like the reason the browser became an OS and the text editors became an OS is because the browsers didn't give us that, at least not in a cross-platform way. And even really like shell tooling, I would say, you know, falls short of a lot of that. Like try doing job control in your shell. It's not great. Try stitching together jobs. Try doing like structured concurrency in your shell. It doesn't work. And so that's why we have just like a nonstop, never-ending stream of new programming languages trying to solve these problems that the OS vendors fail to do. I think probably we're all just wishing for Smalltalk. We're not actually wishing that we were in Emacs. We're probably wishing that we were in Smalltalk, I guess. From what I've read, I've never tried it, but Smalltalk sounds pretty good. So here's something I think is interesting. I'm going to try to connect this. Bear with me. So if this was hard to find, by the way, this is the original. Maybe you remember this. And I almost, you know, when the internet forgets things, you start to wonder if you just had your own hallucination. But luckily I found this. This was what the Gmail homepage looked like. By the way, they blocked themselves on archive.org. So that's another example where they're kind of just like building in forgetting into the system that we thought was never going to forget, but it's forgetting. And so where I'm going with this is like, when the system is lossy, when the internet is lossy, when you can no longer depend on the internet to be your database, which is what Google started out as. If you know the original, like the original thing that Google was driving for was they wanted the search box to be your file system. Like they wanted you to go to Google instead of entering a domain name into your browser address bar, that kind of thing. But if the internet is forgetting, then you can't do that. So Gmail started out with this really proud declaration that you have all this space. Never delete an email. They said never delete an email. And they had this counter that was just going up and up and up. And now, of course, that's nowhere on their homepage. And now the only counter you'll see on Google is this thing, which is telling you actually everything's going down, is not going up, because it turns out there's no free lunch. So the answer to that in the open source, you know, in computing, our answer to that is we need things to be distributed. Git solves this. But also it's like another form of that is just the hosted model. You need to be a flea that's hopping from, you know, one animal to another. Like you need to be nimble. You need to be able to just move around, because you can't depend on the internet. Actually, it turns out, it's sad to say, but the internet is forgetting. So you need your your junk drawer that you carry around with you, which is what the distributed model is. A Git repo is a junk drawer that you're carrying around with you everywhere, or you could call it a programmer's towel. And it's also the same thing with your text editor. Your text editor is your hitchhiker's towel that you're carrying around with you everywhere. It's your personal corpus of like stuff that you've learned, scripts that you've written, that kind of thing. And so the Neovim project will continue to like keep this in mind. We're not going to be dependent on GitHub, although we love GitHub. I love GitHub. I think they're a great service currently, but you never know. They could turn out to be another SourceForge, because you can see what's happening with all these services now. Twitter, Reddit, the free lunch is going away. So you don't really know when the free lunch is going to go away. And, we wouldn't even necessarily be opposed to paying some money to GitHub. They're providing a valuable service. So it's not that kind of thing. But there's a lot of stuff that depends on actually just those GitHub requests returning 200s instead of 400s. I mean, 404s. Like I think all of Node.js NPM might be dependent on that. I don't know. I think Homebrew is dependent on it. I don't know who's paying for Homebrew. But anyways, we're backing up all of our issues and our PRs. So if the day comes, then we'll be able to move somewhere else. And the other thing that is related to this is LLMs. Like LLMs are they're like kind of like a little like nuclear railgun that you can carry around with you. You're carrying around kind of a portable Google, which is great because Google was supposed to deliver that, and they used to have Google Sites, and they discontinued that. But hopefully LLMs will deliver that if we can have those. But the reason that this matters for Neovim is that it means that documentation matters even more than it did before. The LLMs, the wonderful thing about LLMs is that they mimic humans, which means that anything that's good for humans is good for the LLMs. So like when we write documentation, it's also good for the LLM. If we don't write documentation, you can, when you ask a question to the LLM, you'll get answers that are less useful. So code comments and commit messages that are meaningful and that connect things meaningfully, these feed the LLMs, and they feed humans too. So just do it. There's no excuse not to. The LLMs are not going to save you from like having to, express yourself meaningfully. They actually increase the reason for doing that. I'll be just a couple more slides, and so related to this topic of just like maintaining a useful space colony for people to do meaningful and deep work in, with some actual like material improvements there are just our build system. Thanks to Dundar Gok, our builds are extremely fast now. I use this as like kind of a rough Boolean function for like whether something is or isn't a text editor. A lot of people like say, well, is VS Code a text editor or isn't it? Well, I think that if it can't be portable, if it's not like a hitchhiker's towel that you can carry with you, then it's probably not a text editor. And like a nice kind of mechanical way of deciding that is just, can you build it in less than 5 minutes or not? Starting from downloading the source code. I don't think you can download the VS Code source code in 5 minutes. Well, that's not true. But I don't know if it includes Electron or not. That might be a submodule. So In any case, yeah. So these things are having real gains, and the space colony, the ecosystem that we have is like clearly doing what we had hoped it would do since we started this experiment in 2014. Neovim is a software engineering project, basically. It's like it's the other half of building software. Like half of it is deep technical work. The other half is like uh, figuring out all the like stuff that surrounds the software, which includes like continuous integration, which them didn't have in 2014, and putting armor and scar tissue around the build system and making the build system really uh, just beautiful, which I think Dundergok has done. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. So yeah, and we have more amazing, more numerous, and more impressive developers working on the project than we have ever had. Period. Um, it's amazing and it's exciting to see what people are doing. Um, yeah, and um, so I'll just say quickly about two slides about what's next. Like so part of conceptual integrity is like error correction, and that means being able to remove things, being able to deprecate things, and that we just need to keep doing that. And if it pisses some people off, that's okay, because we're making that trade-off. We're making that trade-off. It's okay to fire some users. You're fired. If you don't like the breaking, then you're fired. Go use something else. It'll be okay. And like roughly just like some big ideas for next year. At least part of these, I think, are viable for next year. At least the top, yeah, pretty much all of these. Like next year, this is what I see myself thinking about a lot, at least. Some sort of starting like to explore the idea of like a built-in plugin manager. And I'm not going to be working on lsp.server, but that was something that popped in here somehow. And then just like the path to 1.0, if you follow this link, it goes to the plan there, which is and future big ideas is WebAssembly plugins are in scope. We don't have a plan there, but like the door isn't closed on there. And the plugin manager topic is related to maybe figuring out a solution for how to define the dependency tree, which I think makes a lot of sense to just steal what npm already has. Yeah, for better or worse. And then VS Code Remote, I think, is just it's not really. I don't think there's too much technical difficulty there. It's more just like we need someone to deliver it, and there might be a few things in the core that need to be changed for Neovim. But the general idea there is that like similar, if you've ever seen the VS Code remote experience where you point to a server and you get a new editor connected to that server without having to install anything on the server. That's something I think worth doing in Neovim. And I am done. Thank you for your time and your patience.